Hey guys, what is going on? I am back with another video, and today I will be diving into a widely debated topic with sports media and fans, especially the fans in Green Bay, regarding which Lambeau quarterback is the best of all time. And I know some people, when I say that, they might think Bart Starr here, and yes, he is a great quarterback as he is in the Hall of Fame, but he's just not as good as the two QBs I will be talking about today, that being Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers. So I was looking on the internet for some more background research on this topic, and I noticed that a lot of people are talking about this subject in way more than I previously thought. So I finished my research, and today I will be putting my thoughts and opinions on the matter. So I'm going to try to answer this question: is Aaron Rodgers better than Brett Favre? Now, I know some people will say that Aaron Rodgers is not even done playing yet, and yes, that is although true. I personally think that his career is definitely winding down, and unless he gets another Super Bowl or an MVP, I do not think Aaron Rodgers will do anything else to improve his career drastically. So before we get started here, I just want to let you guys know this is my opinion here, and if you happen to disagree, then I do apologize beforehand, and comment down below on who you think is the better quarterback. And if you are new here and want to see more content dealing with the NFL, then consider subscribing to the channel and hit the notification bell to see more videos like these and be the first to see them. And if you like the video, please leave a like, guys, that'd be much appreciated. And with all that out of the way, onto the video. Alright, now that we've gotten that fun stuff out of the way, I just want to let you guys know that I will be doing this matchup by basing each QB off of different topics, that being postseason success, throwing ability, awards, and clutchness. Now, usually instead of clutchness, I would do passing records, but just because Aaron Rodgers' career is not technically done yet, I decided to leave it off for just the sake of this video and make it seem fair, as both quarterbacks are actually pretty good clutch performers when it counts. So I thought it'd be a great thing to discuss and completely fair to both. So here we go. Postseason success is one of the most important aspects of quarterback play, as some of the best quarterbacks of all time have massive postseason success, like Joe Montana, Tom Brady, Terry Bradshaw, Troy Aikman, Johnny Unitas, and more. That aspect of the game is just too hard to ignore here, so let's talk about it. Let's first talk about Brett Favre. Brett Favre has managed to win 160 games out of 253 starts, making out to be a 62.7 winning percentage, and has qualified for the postseason 11 times and only had one losing season in 2005, in which they went 4-12. Favre and his Packers have won the division crown 7 times, and in those 11 times Favre has made it to the postseason, he has played a total of 22 playoff games. In those 22 playoff games, he has managed to win 12 of those games, which is a win percentage of 54.5%, which is decent but definitely not bad here. In those playoff games, he threw for 5,311 yards, 39 touchdowns, and 28 interceptions, with a completion rating of 60.4%, which is decent, but let's talk about his stats a little bit more here. His 5,311 passing yards is first all-time amongst all quarterbacks in NFL history in pass, and also in pass completions and attempts. Favre is second. On top of that, he is fourth all-time in postseason wins behind John Elway, Terry Bradshaw, Tom Brady, and Joe Montana. Despite that, Favre is also tied with Peyton Manning with the most playoff losses in NFL history with 11. Favre has made it to the Super Bowl twice and won one of them, with a win over the Patriots and a loss against John Elway and the Denver Broncos the year after, making Favre 1-1 in the Super Bowl. But overall, Favre has a pretty good postseason success with the Packers, as he has some historic wins along with some very devastating losses, but overall did pretty solid in the postseason. Now we have gotten Favre's stats down, let's talk about Aaron Rodgers. Rodgers has appeared in 164 games and has started in 157 of those games and has won 103 of those games, which leads a win percentage of 65.4, which is higher than Favre's by 2.7%. Out of the 11 years as a starter, Rodgers has led the Packers to the postseason 8 times and has won the division crown 5 times. In those 8 times making the postseasons, Rodgers has played a total of 17 playoff games and started in 16 of those games and has an overall record of 9-7, which is pretty mediocre, and a percentage of 56.3% for wins, which is definitely worse than Favre's win percentage by 6.4%. As for his passing stats, in those postseason games, Rodgers has thrown for 4,458 passing yards, 36 touchdowns, and only 10 interceptions, with a completion rating of 63.5%, which is actually fantastic, as he has as much touchdowns as Favre does and has half of Favre's interceptions and has played in 5 less playoff games. Rodgers also has a better completion percentage as well. Now, another big thing I want to address here is Super Bowls. Aaron Rodgers has been to one Super Bowl back in 2010, where the Packers beat the Steelers 31-25 in Super Bowl 45. Rodgers has never appeared in another Super Bowl as of now. However, Rodgers has been very close to multiple Super Bowls. But nevertheless, looking back, Aaron Rodgers has one Super Bowl appearance, which makes him 1-0 in the big game. Now that we have our information, let's do a comparison between the two QB playoff averages. Let's start with passing yards. For Brett Favre, his average per playoff game passing is 241.4 yards passing per playoff game during his career, and 1.7 touchdowns per playoff game, with 1.27 interceptions, as well, with an average of 60.4 completion percentage, and is 12-10 in the postseason and is 1-1 in the Super Bowl. Bowl. Now for Rodgers, his passing averages are 278.625 passing yards a game and 2.25 touchdowns per playoff game with 0.6 interceptions, with a completion percentage of 63.5, and is 9-7 in the postseason and 1-0 in the Super Bowl. Looking at them side by side, Rodgers just beats Favre in every single category noticeably. And I know some people will say that, hey, Brett Favre was a gunslinger, so of course he would do worse. And although there is some truth to that case of interceptions and touchdowns, however, it is not explained why Favre has about 37 less passing yards per game than Rodgers does and overall wins less. Also, another thing I want to point out is that Favre has better talent than Rodgers does by a lot actually, as Favre has Pro Bowlers like Antonio Freeman, Mark Chuna, Bubba Franks, Amon Green, Donald Driver, and possible Hall of Famer Sterling Sharp. Even with all those weapons, Favre still failed to beat Rodgers in any passing stat. So in the end, both Favre and Rodgers are actually pretty solid in the postseason, but I'll have to give the point to Rodgers as he was able to accomplish and perform better than Favre with half the talent he had. So for that aspect, I'll give to Rodgers as being the better postseason performer. Alright, now that we've gotten all that out of the way, let's talk about something more personal, which is actually their ability to throw the football. Now, for those who really don't understand what the concept that I'm actually talking about here, I'm really referring to how their style of play can affect games. Attributes like release times and their ability to scramble and whatnot. So let's first talk about Brett Favre. Brett Favre is often considered everybody to be a gunslinger type of quarterback. And for those who do not know, a gunslinger is a quarterback who likes to fit the ball in tight places and try to force the ball whether the receiver is open or not. This kind of play is very risky and the most dangerous play style for any quarterback to play, and if needed, some examples of quarterbacks who use this play style. Good examples are Dan Fouts, Dan Marino, Joe Namath, Kurt Warner, and Warren Moon. These are good examples of gunslingers, and because these play styles makes you force the ball, it can allow for a lot of interceptions. But the upside is the quarterback can play more freely. Brett Favre is considered the best gunslinger quarterback in NFL history, and I personally agree with this as he's a fantastic playmaker and can make throws that you can never imagine. With that, he also makes some dumb throws, and some of the times it did cost the game. So even though he is the best at being a gunslinger, he still is very risky a lot of the time. Favre's arm strength is almost unmatched, as Favre is really able to throw passes a lot farther than I previously thought, which is something that is really impressive as he was able to keep this up for the rest of his career and for his later years. As well, which is interesting, is that Favre would much rather throw a pass than take a sack, which is also can be a huge problem and a common trait amongst gunslingers. That will be all for Favre. Now let's talk about Rodgers. Aaron is the exact opposite of Favre, as he is a precision passer. He always thinks before he throws and puts a lot of precision on how he moves and where he should and how he should throw the ball. In my eyes, this is the most important aspect of being a quarterback. Rodgers always takes into account of receiver position during a play and adjusts his throws on where the receiver is most comfortable with. With that, Aaron Rodgers always pays attention to the small stuff like how many men are on the field, and when there are offside penalties, he would attempt a deep throw. Aaron Rodgers' awareness is the best I've ever seen in a quarterback ever. The only downside I see to Rodgers' play is how at times he's just not aggressive enough to try to fit a tight pass and would rather take a sack than rather try something. For that, it's pretty subjective, but in my personal opinion, I'd rather take the sack than trying to force it. Overall, I believe that Brett Favre has way better arm strength than Aaron Rodgers, and it's no contest, but I would give the edge to Rodgers here just because his awareness is just too hard to ignore and his throw on the run is far better than Favre's, and plus precision passers are more steady and overall better throwers than gunslingers any day. So I say that Rodgers is a better passer than Brett Favre. Next up is going to be the awards and accomplishments each player has received over the course of their career. Now, I know that this is pretty controversial due to the fact that Aaron Rodgers' career is technically not over yet, and I do agree. However, if Aaron Rodgers keeps going down the path of Green Bay in this messed up state that the team is currently in, I don't think that Aaron Rodgers will be winning any awards that will affect this matchup. So I will talk about and compare it for now. And for those who disagree with that, yeah, I'm sorry, but let's proceed. First off, let's start with Brett Favre. Brett Favre's accomplishments are not something to look away from, and is the main reason why he's considered as one of the greatest quarterbacks in the modern NFL. Now let's just quickly mention those awards, shall we? 3 MVPs, 11 Pro Bowls, 3 first-team All-Pros, 3 second-team All-Pros, 4 passing touchdown titles, and 2 passing yard titles, a completion percentage leader, and 1 Offensive Player of the Year once. Now that's a lot to take in, and although there are fantastic accomplishments, the only thing that sticks out is Favre's lack of Super Bowl MVP award, and the fact that he has not led the league in QB rating at all during his career. But overall, these are almost unmatched, and the most impressive things are the MVP awards. For those who don't know, Favre's MVP awards came consecutively, which means he has won MVP awards in 3 straight years, which is completely insane and really shows how dominant he was, especially in the mid-90s. As far far fares Aaron Rodgers, his accomplishments are nothing to shy away from either, and over the course of his career so far, he has amassed 2 MVP awards, 1 Super Bowl MVP, 7-time Pro Bowler, 2-time First Team All-Pro, 1 Second Team All-Pro, and 1 2-time QB rating leader. Now, the only thing I would say the differences are between these two are the Pro Bowls and the passing and completion titles. Overall, those things are pretty small compared to the big picture, which is MVPs and First Team All-Pros and Pro Bowls. Now, I know Aaron Rodgers' career's not over yet, but to be completely honest, I don't think he'll get another MVP in his career due to the fact that there is so much new and young talent in the NFL right now, like Patrick Mahomes, Baker Mayfield, Saquon Barkley, and Sam Darnold. They are definitely going to get more spotlight and win those types of awards and get that type of attention, while as Rodgers will probably get more Pro Bowls and maybe a First Team All-Pro or 2, but I don't see much out of Aaron Rodgers for the coming years. Now, that's just my opinion, and I could definitely be wrong here, so take that as you will. Nevertheless, I believe the winner here is Brett Favre, no doubt about it. Although he has no Super Bowl MVPs, I simply can't ignore the MVPs and the fact that he won them consecutively, which shows that Favre was far more dominant in his era and in his prime versus Rodgers in his era and his prime. So the winner goes to Brett Favre. For the quarterback position, the most important thing for them is the clutch gene. Can they perform the best when they need to be? Can they perform at the biggest stage in the biggest moment? For a lot of quarterbacks, they can say yes, but for others, no comment. As for Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers, they are both very good clutch performers, but which one is better? Let's find out. Let's start with Brett Favre. Brett Favre total has 43 game-winning drives, which is 5th most in NFL history, but this is not really surprising to many people who have watched him, and I do agree that Favre is pretty much the most clutch a pretty clutch quarterback most of the time. However, Favre is also known for doing the most stupid throws to end a big game I've ever seen in my whole life. So overall, I'm pretty even ground with Favre and see him as a great clutch performer. As for Aaron Rodgers, he has also made some famous clutch drives as his own, as well as some most notable being the final drive against the Bears to clinch the division crown back in 2010, and some recent feats like the game-winning drive against the Cowboys in the NFC divisional round and another game-winning drive against them the very next year. Overall, Aaron Rodgers has 20 game-winning drives as of right now. Although Rodgers does have a couple of blunders himself, he's still able to perform at the highest level when it really comes down to it. Overall, there are some notable differences between the two, that being that Favre has more game-winning drives. In fact, he has more than double. However, with that being said, Brett Favre has made far more blunders than Aaron Rodgers has, and some people will say, oh, well, Brett Favre isn't playing longer than Rodgers, so of course he'd make more mistakes. Now, that point has some truth to it, but let's be a little real here. Most of Favre's game winners came along before 2002, as he has 23 game-winning drives from 1992 to 2002. So if you can see how close they really are to each other for those who want to use that argument. Now, will Aaron Rodgers ever reach 43 game-winning drives? Probably not, but both were clutch during their primes. Although this could be very close, I don't think Aaron Rodgers could really stand to Brett Favre when it comes to a category like this, just because Brett Favre has always been known for this, and it's one of the first things you think about. So for that reason, I'll give the edge to Brett Favre for clutchness. Alright everybody, this has been a long video so far, so I'll wrap it up here, but let's do a quick recap. So I first started off with postseason success, and this was very close for me, and honestly it could go either way, but due to Favre's mishaps, I decided to give it to Aaron Rodgers the edge here, just because he is thoughtful and definitely adjusts better in many different situations and is able to turn games around, while I can't say the same for Brett Favre. As for throwing and passing ability, it was very one-sided, as Rodgers is one of the best throwers in the NFL and probably all time, but I will talk about that another day, but this one was easy to cover, so I gave Aaron Rodgers the edge here. As for the awards, this one was also one-sided, however it was in Brett Favre's favor, as not many, if any, other quarterbacks were able to accomplish what Brett Favre accomplished during his prime. So with that, I gave the edge to Brett Favre. Last goes to clutch ability, and this one got very close to it when doing a 10-year comparison, but I gave it to Brett Favre, as he, mostly because of his legacy of Favre being a clutch performer, and even though he has some blunders, he was still able to have many fantastic performances when they mattered most. So I decided to give the edge to Brett Favre for clutch play. Now, who do I think is the best quarterback? I will have to give it to Aaron Rodgers here. Now, here's why I say this. Aaron Rodgers was able to do more in Green Bay than Brett Favre did. Now, don't get me wrong, Brett Favre was a big reason for Green Bay becoming a pretty solid team back in the 90s and early 2000s. However, Favre really did not single-handedly won Green Bay any Lombardi trophies. Now, I know some people in the comment section would be like, well, what do you mean? Favre brought the Packers to 2 Super Bowls. And that is true, but if you actually watch the actual Super Bowl, Favre was not the actual MVP in that game at all. He did play pretty well though. He did not get the MVP that game, Desmond Howard did. And Favre was not the biggest reason why the 1996 Packers did so well, as it was their defense defense, which only allowed 13.3 points a game. Not to mention that they lost the Super Bowl the very next year, and Aaron Rodgers, although only made to one Super Bowl, he was able to win it, and he was able to become Super Bowl MVP of that game as well. And throughout his career, Aaron Rodgers has been the biggest asset of that team for years. Not to mention Rodgers' throwing ability is completely unmatched. So overall, I would want Aaron Rodgers on my football team over Brett Favre any day of the week, just because Rodgers can do what Favre does and then some. Alright everybody, that marks the end of this video, but what do you guys think is the better quarterback? Leave your comment down below, and just want to recap, that was just my opinion. So yeah, if you guys have not already subscribed to this channel, that would be fantastic, and if you do like the video, drop a like on this video, as that would help me out, and you guys already know, and I want to thank you guys all for watching this video, and I'll see you all next time.